The BFA Dance program at the Peabody Conservatory of the Johns Hopkins University prepares students to be at the forefront of dance innovation through performance, choreographic, and critical, historical, and theoretical exploration. Studying dance at Johns Hopkins, one of the world's premier research institutions, gives students the opportunity to make connections between dance, science, technology, and the humanities. Peabody students take courses in modern dance, African expressions, ballet, somatic approaches to movement, choreography, and dance as social justice, perform in a pre-professional student dance company, and collaborate with world-renowned guest artists. From the first year, students have the opportunity to choreograph their own pieces. At Peabody, we welcome a broad range of creative voices and prepare student artists for success in the real world. Submit your application by December 1st. Learn more at Peabody.jhu.edu/dancebfa.
I'm Rebecca King-Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Sean Breeden, and you're listening to Conversations on Dance. On today's episode of Conversations on Dance, we are joined by choreographer Hope Boykin. We catch up with Hope about her retirement and transition to full-time choreographer, as well as her process and preparation for her new work, States of Hope, that will premiere at the Joyce Theater this October 17th and run through October 22nd. If you're in the New York area and would like to purchase tickets, visit joyce.org/performances. Hope, good morning, and thank you so much for coming back on Conversations on Dance. It feels like yesterday we talked to you in Vail, but I went to go back and look it up, as I was just telling you before we started recording, and it's been over 4 years. What month are we in? Yeah, it's been like 4.5 years. So
good luck with what month it is.
We've got we've got a lot to catch up on. Actually, and we were talking about, we just ran into each other at USC. We were both working there. And I thought your USC story is kind of an interesting way of maybe bringing us into the present, because you were creating during COVID, which would have been right after we first interviewed you on the podcast. And then you got to go back this year when things were a little bit more normal. So maybe you could tell us about those experiences at USC.
Sure. I love that place. I love the openness and the relaxed is the wrong word, but almost inviting and warmth that the school has. And not that every school needs to be this way. I think that each institution, and I live in New York. Sorry for the sirens.
Okay.
Yeah, it happens. But the warmth that I found there when I was first there was so overwhelming. And I was with the sophomore class who has since graduated now, and they weren't able to perform the work. And then I got a call during their senior year that they wanted to put their work back together, that they were never able to perform live. And so they did it 3 or 4 times in different, situations. So it felt like I was still connected with them. I did teach on Zoom. So the class that I had on Zoom are now seniors. And I'm actually doing a senior solo for Jada Vaughn. And then I was there when we saw each other again, working with the sophomores. And it feels like it's important for me to, as educator is the first word in my 4-word, mission statement: educator, creator, mover, motivator, educating and being in this creative space with those folk, those young folk, the ones who want a career similar to the ones that, we chose. The life that we chose, they want to work, they want to push. And I found that transition was right, because I learned a lot about what to say and what not to say to this particular generation of dancers coming up. And excuse me, I've said this before, but their favorite word is my favorite word. And I'm trying to let them understand that they can be their favorite word is no. No should be paramount. This complete sentence, this, completely transparent word, it doesn't have any room for vagueness. You say no, and they're like, what do you mean no? Well, I mean, no, that's not going to work. No, that's not good. No, let's fix it. I don't want to leave you out, with no, but let's start there. Let's start with how we can get to yes. And 7 or 8 of the dancers were here in New York during their summer program. And I got an email saying, we'd love to take you to dinner. And that's when I knew that the no's had become yes, because they didn't, like the work we did. I still marvel at the work that they created in the space. But the fact that they still wanted to include me in their lives during their summer, during their time in New York, was really a big deal for me. So I put on a medal that day. I felt so taken care of and loved. And they told me where we were meeting. I had to do no work, so it was just wonderful. It was really wonderful. But anyway, yes.
No, that's
my
beautiful.
USC transition. Yeah.
You mentioned motivator as part of your mission statement. And I remember that was a big part of what we spoke with you about last time. And we got so much great feedback from your episode last time. We'll put a link in the episode description so people can find it and go back and listen if they want. But I remember that one of the things I think Michael and I were talking about this morning, that at the end of the interview offline, you told us that you were about to retire, because I think you hadn't told anyone yet. And then we started talking about retirement. We had an emotional moment and all of that. So since that has happened since then, how did that all pan out for you? And how has that transition been after your incredible 20-year career?
So I don't know if you remember, but I told you that I love tech. I love cameras. I loved all the things. And so I had all of those things with me. I think even when I was at Vail, I had a Ronin. Yeah. So it was me learning how to maneuver this, incredible device. And I was ready for the pandemic, believe it or not. I was, much like you were, because we already had mics, we already had lights. We knew how to have a conversation with people who weren't right in front of us. And that, I think, was really helpful to me in the transition. I don't think I really felt the full retirement until people started going back to work, because we were all done or paused at the same moment. And when I felt it just as a little bit of a longing, but not so much loneliness. I was like, but I knew that I'd made the right decision. Physically, I'd made the right decision. I've been suffering with some health things that I feel like my body just waited until you said, "You sure, girl? You sure you're done?" Because we're about to show you what we've been holding back, and it just sort of broke. My body broke down, and I'm still coming back from those things, and I'm grateful for it. But because everything is a lesson, but it was not as difficult as I would. I mean, there were days that we all suffered when we were, during the pandemic and everything, but my transition itself wasn't as difficult. And by the time Ailey had their opening night in person, I don't know if that was 2021, I'm not exact, or 22, I'm not sure. But that opening night, I was just clapping for those younger folk who were on the stage. I knew that it was exactly the right decision. I'd seen this interview that Mr. Ailey had given. I don't know. I forgot who was interviewing him, but they asked him why he stopped. And I'm not comparing myself to him, but what he said was that he stopped because he needed to make room for the next person. And oftentimes I feel like we can hold on because we don't want to be at a loss. And so my decision, I made a public statement eventually, and then going through the pandemic and having to, I was still dancing in my living room, but that last rock of my soul in my living room, dropping to my knee, I was like, oh, I'm done with this. I have been filled with it. It has been glorious, but gosh, I don't want to do that thing to my body that's already aching. You know what I mean? I don't want to pretend that it doesn't hurt. That's really what it is. Yes. The smile I can't just keep putting that smile on when there's a shock. Is it gonna sustain itself? Is the joint, we know when it comes to our bodies, they are our instruments. This is how we, live, play the game, whatever we want to call it. And when it stops working, we have to think about what that means when it slows itself down, and I would do it again exactly the same way. I'd probably push myself to the end, but maybe, or to the limit, but maybe I would try to take care of these joints and bones and things a little bit differently than I did. But the retirement was right on time.
Same,
and I don't regret it. I don't regret it.
Well,
totally. We don't need to force that,
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm just. Did you find that you when did you start to hurt? I'm just thinking about this because it was pretty late for me, and that was part of the problem. So I think I didn't know how to take care of myself. So like if you're like one of those people that's like a workhorse and you're relied upon and you're not injured ever, you can take it as a badge of honor and be like, I don't even go to physical therapy. I'm great. So when
that was not me.
Okay.
Yeah, Michael, you're alone in that one on this Zoom call.
I was always in physical therapy. But I had my first major injury before I even danced professionally, because I was a gymnast and I would fall and run into things and bump into things. And then you would I remember losing some temporary teeth and then just literally gross, sucking it up and moving back on and going back and doing the vault again. I remember that's just what it seemed like. And my last performance in high school, I had a bad sprain. And before I knew anything about athletic tape, I had the doctor taped my ankle, and I went and got some brown duct tape, the shiny electrical tape. And this is in the 90s, and taped my ankle. So when I watched that video, you see a shiny ankle. Who knew? Who thought to go put makeup on it? Like, first of all, there were only two brands that sold makeup for dark skinned people. And, anyway, nobody thought that was a thing.
Right.
And so that I feel like I was always prone to something, and I always pushed in spite of it. And I think that's the lesson I teach now. Even in rehearsal, I say, I want you to do this. Oh, you know how to do it now? We don't have to keep doing it. I don't need you to keep showing me, because repetition causes injury, good repetition and poor repetition. Yeah. And so no matter what it is, just ease off. Do we know it? Of course, we're going to have to rehearse, especially if we're with people or partners. But at some point, we should be able to dial it down so that we can preserve, because once the cartilage is gone, it's gone. Once the ligament is stretched, it's stretched. It doesn't come back. That's why I tell these young folk to stop sickling their foot. I'm like, stop sickling that foot, because when you are sickling in these new shapes and beautiful lines, you're stretching ligaments and tendons. And then you put on that cute shoe and you roll over that ankle and you think it's the shoe, but it was actually the sickle. Dun, dun, dun. Sorry. I mean, corny, but you know what I mean? Like we don't realize what we do that affects us. Ultimately, that's what I'm saying, that we can control the outcome. And I did not. I just pushed. I pushed because I didn't want to be left. I pushed because I wanted to dance. And, but the minute you step out or say you can't do something, they replace you. And how good does that feel?
Terrible.
Not terrible. Yeah.
That's why we live in these bodies like this now that all dysfunction, because it is that fear. And I think that's so wonderful that you're telling the dancers that you're working with that they can, without fear of retribution, be like, okay, I'm done now. Like, I figured that out. I got it. I'll rehearse when I need to, but I'm done. I think that's such a valuable lesson and a way to change it for the next generation. Yeah, because it actually empowers them to do it when they need to do it. And then, like, what is marking really? Marking is just turning the volume down. It's not turning it off, and so maybe you don't need to jump all the time, but you still have to cover the same amount of space because people are working with you. Maybe you don't have to do that, what's that? It's my favorite press, in spring waters.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Torch lift.
Torch lift.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Torch lift. There it is, the term. So, maybe you don't have to do that every single or 10 times in one rehearsal if you know how to do it, but we still have to do it. And I think it's teaching, it's the knowing when that we need to really kind of regulate.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So just one more note on retirement, I guess. So had you planned to have like a blowout? Like how exactly did it go down for you? Did COVID cut off a potential like big celebratory moment for you? And if so, how did that, I guess impact you emotionally or in moving into the next phase?
That's really a great question. The last city center that I did, two wonderful people, supporters of Ailey, and a former board member, actually threw a reception for me. And I was able to invite people. My family came, my mom, my aunt came, and like it was really a wonderful time. I didn't know how emotional I was going to get. I don't think I realized the whole company would come after the performance. It was really a special time. So that felt like a definitive end, because that was the end of City Center and I had done 20 of them. Right. Then I did request to dance some things I had not performed. And Matthew Rushing, who was then, just become our associate artistic director, and Robert Battle agreed that I could do these works, and it was going to happen on my final performance, which was going to be Mother's Day at New Jersey PAC. And so we didn't make it to May. We only made it to March. Right. And so I constantly was a part of the transition with Ailey and the social media and how we all had to find our way in that. So I didn't really get the end that I thought. But this past May, I was invited to choreograph for the Ailey Spirit Gala. And that was an organizational event. So there were two students from the junior division, an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old. There were 4 students from Ailey Camp. So they were like between 12 and 14. 22 professional division students ranging from the Ailey certificate program, the scholarship, and the BFA. 6 Ailey 2 dancers and 6 first company members. Wow. So when we did the piece, and executive director Bennett Rink was like, Hope, you should take a bow. When I went to take a bow for that felt like the bow. Yeah. And what the best part of it was, now I have a little sprinkle on that 7-year-old or the 8-year-old and the 9-year-old, and a sprinkle on the junior division and a sprinkle on Ailey Camp. Like, so you live so that you can continue to live, and you work so that you can work through people, and you show the thing that you love so you can teach people how to love it. And I feel like that was such an opportunity for me. So I'm so grateful I was able to do that, because I didn't know I needed it, but at the end of it, I was like, oh, this sort of feels like the thank you, even though it was me saying thank you for allowing me to have this time and not be so separate from an organization. You retire, it doesn't mean you cut, you just decide you don't want to do a deep plie anymore. in the front of a wedge, with the in a brown dress. I just was like, no, I don't want to, but I want to do that thing.
Yeah. I imagine that must be so meaningful for you to still feel a part of the organization that you've loved for so long, and just in a different way.
Exactly. You love it. And not only do I love it, I want to share what was so wonderful with so many people.
That's beautiful. Well, you certainly kept busy since this transition. I'm sure, there's a lot we could talk about from the past 40 years, but I think we want to probably just get right to the thing we're here to talk about and promote, which is your upcoming week at the Joyce. I want to hear, well, I guess first, was the concept for the performance, did that come first, or was the offer to have this week at the Joyce what then inspired you to kind of figure out what was going to be presented?
So what's funny is I'm at 92nd Street Y right now in their newly renovated space to rehearse some for this week, for the week at the Joyce. And it was because Taryn Kashok Russell invited me to do a performance here when she was putting dance back on the 92nd Street Y main stage, that had producer Ross LeClaire see the show and then say, I'd like to talk about how we can support your work at the Joyce. And so I said, the fact that I'm sitting here is really great. But he said, let's have some lunches. And so he shared with me what producers should share. Hey, what is it you're thinking about? What would you do? I'll be honest with you and I'll tell you if I think this might work. And then he said something that was really key to me. He said, evenings with a through line tend to work well. Mm-hmm. That's it. He didn't say better or worse. He just said they work well. Mm-hmm. And then I said, well, I have a dream actually that I would like to put movement and words together where it's not just me speaking, because the concert he saw was fully voiceovered. But it was my writing, but you heard me and it was, music and whatever, but it was a mix. And then the second performance I did that I really just tried to dive into where I was using spoken word was me speaking it live, and the dancers were dancing. So I could see them. So when it was at Chelsea Factory, so I could see when I watched them, I could see them moving. And then of course at Vail, I danced with Lauren Lovett because
That's what I was just thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we're moving together in this space, but again, it was still only me. Mm-hmm. And I said to Ross, I was like, what if everyone is mic'd and there's a full script? And he was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And so the log line for States of Hope is in a fully scripted evening length new dance theater work. Mm-hmm. And I've said this before, new is not meaning it's never been done. It's new for me.
Right.
But I feel like it's important for me to remind people that it's new for me and I'm allowed to call it a new thing, like if Nike puts out a new shoe, they say new shoe. So why can't I say new dance theater work? Yeah. And it's very interesting. I was prompted because I do work in theater. I work in theater and musical theater, and I'm a movement director and a choreographer, and I've got a musical theater agent. So, I know what that life is, but knowing that I wanted to write something where I challenged the moving artist to speak was really, who do I ask? Who do I invite? And I was prompted to invite actors first. Mm. And I was like, yeah, no, I will invite actors first because dancers act. When we don't want to, we do. When we're hungry, we do. When we hurt, we do. While we're enduring all the things, we still do it to the best of our ability. So I would like to work with this group of people, and with an unbelievable cast. I am just blown away by what they can do because we feel things so deeply as movers. So imagine feeling deeply and then having to express that deep feeling out of your mouth while you're moving. Not speaking, stop, dance, stop, speaking, stop, dance, stop. No, speak, dance, move. And it's really kind of exciting to watch it come to life.
Right.
So is it mostly actors?
We're all actors, but it's a full dance first cast.
Right.
Ooh.
Everyone has danced. Everyone has led with the moving art first.
Huh.
I would like to rewind for a second and just know a little bit more, because obviously this is something, even though this is a scale you haven't done it on before and involving the entire cast is not something you've done before. Obviously you're inspired by the marriage of spoken word and dance. Yes. What do you find inspiring about that? And when did you first start to kind of explore that avenue?
Well, I love to say, and I might have said it with you all before, that I believe movement is abstract. Mm-hmm. And there is no movement for the word love, but it's how we, invite an arm to reach. It's how Juliet runs to Romeo. It's how, the woman in Fix Me Jesus runs to this angel character. Like there's a lovingness in the quality and in the way that we do, the way that we move. When we're in a movie and we hear music that's soft and loving, all of a sudden we know something sweet might happen, or we hear the reverse. Or I don't know if you've noticed, but when in movies, when silence completely drops out, when the soundtrack drops out and you are just forced to listen to the actors speak, you have to zoom in. And so why not take this abstractness and make it fully transparent? Not that I'm trying to define an arabesque, saying an arabesque means the, and, a passe means two. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's not what I mean. I just think that we can use this movement to then develop what is so clear in how we feel and how we think. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could reach out to you and shake your hand and say, I hope you have a good day. That's different from standing back and not touching you and nodding my head saying, I hope you have a good day. Mm-hmm. And it's also very different from saying, I hope you have a good day and no emotion. Mm-hmm. But the minute I touch you, the minute I show this shaking hand action, you really start to feel that my words mean something more than just me standing back. So if I invite movement into the text, and sometimes I don't know what should come first. Should I dive into the movement first or into the words, into the cadence, or should I just allow them to find themselves? I think that is been the challenge, but it's also been really important for me to do that. And so something's also super important about actors. A good friend of mine said to me, Hope, that actors ask why and dancers say okay. And I think that is, isn't that funny?
But
I think it's so true. But I think that dancers should ask why sometimes, but not why do you want me to come out of this wing or why 3 pirouettes, but tell me what it is you want me to understand about your feeling about the work. What can I dive into with my character? How do you want, even with abstract works, I think that knowing what the director or the choreographer has experienced helps us experience something similar to then take it to a new level instead of just being a canvas, because you really want, as in the front of the room, we want to see the dancer who gives us something. Well, why don't we help them give us something?
Mm-hmm. That's funny. I'm thinking even just like working with choreographers, sometimes you might see like, you're working in the room with them, you're executing the steps, and then you might see like an interview or something, and they're like, I was inspired by this. And you're like, oh, that's cool. I see that. But like, it wasn't necessarily discussed. That's really interesting. Right. Yeah. We're just like, okay.
And the safety that we give to the artists, the security, the ownership we give to the artists who are working with us then grows by leaps and bounds, because now they want to help develop and build the work in the same way.
Right.
So just trying to make the words more visible, just like when we see music through the movement, choreographers who are super musical, right? You can just see it moving. You see, I think Alvin Ailey's one of those. Tally Beatty, Ulysses Dove. Oh my goodness, Ulysses Dove. Like this climactic sense of how fast should it turn? How slow should this be pulled out? And then the music is going, yeah. And the arabesque goes, yeah. Like those things make sense. So why can't that happen with I love you in the same push, in the same extension? I love to talk about I have 2 favorite types of runs in dance. One is from a good friend of mine, Asha Thomas, who just had the most incredible run. Asha went to Juilliard. She lives in France now. She'll never hear me talk about her, but like I say, we have to Asha run right here, and then it's the Alessandra Ferry run, the run from the balcony. You're like, yes. So to me, right. But they mean something. So if you put words behind these actions, I just have to get to you because you are so important to me. I love you so much. And that's the cadence of the run. So imagine if she said that, how that would feel, how you would feel because you heard it. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So what was that's great. No, that's great.
I love it.
But now I'm curious about how you were able to deliver this information and instill it in your cast and what the process was like. I mean, I'm sure you pulled together a group of people that were very open and kind of have this like an experimental creative heart or mind. So yeah, I'd just love to hear a little bit more about that.
So yes, talking to the artist at first saying, I have a script. I want to make a dance theater work. Would you be interested in unzipping yourself in doing this? So you got the yes, you got the I would love to, but I'm afraid. Sure, okay, I trust you. I'm not sure, but I trust you. You know what I mean? Like you got those thoughts, and then the hardest thing for me to do was to share the script, because as soon as I shared it, it was out there.
And this is your writing, correct?
My writing, yes. And so it's there's spoken word in it, in which I do the spoken word, and then there's 7 characters: the determined, the cynical, the angry, the worried, the conformist, the convinced, and daughter of Job. And those 7 characters are the 7 states of hope.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm the narrator. And as I narrate in spoken word cadence, but they speak in dialogue to each other. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Why are you asking me that again? Like, they literally are having a conversation, but the conversation is also in my rhythm cadence, and then my rhythmic cadence. And then when I give movement to go with that dialogue, they'll tell me it might be easier if I did this, or we have exercises. And I say, no, you need to lead with the actual word before you do the movement, because we want to make sure the word comes out first, and then it can, it can resonate. If I love you movement instead of I movement love you, because then we're missing the beat. So it's a lot of tedious work for me. I'm sure for other people who have done this before, but I'm diving into something I think I know because this is what I want. But getting them to unpack themselves, some are much more comfortable than others. Some have found that they love this but they never thought that they would like it. And some are right at home because it is what they do. They've danced and they've had concert careers, and now they're either on Broadway or, working to do movies and acting and things like that, separate from that. So that's why I said I have dance first folk, but I also have people who are wrapped in the acting world and studying it.
Is there music involved with this as well?
Yes. So the incredible cast, and then which I'll tell you their names, I think it's so important. And then Ollie Jackson has composed the score. And it was also hard for us because it's hard to work and tell someone exactly what you want and you haven't made it. I think it would have been much easier for him to score something that was complete, but he had to just score from ideas and conversations and the script. And then I laid it down. So maybe what he intended for the worried character, I'm using it for the angry character. Right. So he's not gonna change it because it's been named, whatever. But now he'll see what my flow is. And then when we, the next time we work, maybe there will be something made and he can score it after the fact. But, the way we work as creators, we've been working, I call them he's like a reoccurring support for me. And then I have lighting and set design by Al Crawford, who was another person I try not to go anywhere without. Both Ali and Al have worked with me for nothing. So by the time there's a real commission and they can get paid, I try to be loyal to my folk. And then the incredible cast is Jessica Pinkett, Fana Tesfik-Yorgis, Bahia Heba Saeed, Terry Ayana Wright, Martina Viadana, Lauren Rothert, and Davon Farmer. And we have 2 covers, Amina Vargas and Nina Gomes, and then a guest artist that we're not releasing the name yet.
Okay.
who will appear in a couple of performances.
For the casting process, because you have these characters that are so specific, did you have to cast in that way where you're like, okay, I like this dancer, but I don't see them fitting any of these molds? Or were you strictly assembling a group of people that you believed in first, and then you figured things out character-wise later?
Some of them I knew exactly what they could be. There's one dancer in particular who just wanted to hang out in rehearsal. She just wanted to be a part of seeing how I made work. I met her through the Ailey Spirit Gala. I'd never laid eyes on her before that time. So she would just come to rehearsal, take warm up with us. She'd say, I can run and do errands for you if you want. This is Lauren Rothert. And I was like, oh, okay, that's great. And she just had a nice spirit. So I just said, sure. And I often, and as I'm an educator, when someone says they want to do something and they actually follow through, then you allow them to follow through. And one day I needed to read some people weren't there. So I was reading 3 parts and I was like, that's too many parts. Can you read this part? And she's like, oh yes, I was hoping you'd ask me. That's the part I'd like to read.
Oh, I
And then
love that.
she became the role, and she defined the role. She's playing the conformist. And I didn't realize the conformist really needed to be the youngest person in the cast, the person who wants to be liked, the person who doesn't want to be blamed, the person who wants to always do the right thing. And to me, she's brilliant. I'm thrilled with it. So there's this, a vast experience, of people who are in it, who've done it, and then people who've never done it. But then here we are blending together. And there are people that I've worked with before. Everyone I'd worked with at some point. I don't really audition, even if I have, I'm a project-based choreographer. So I don't audition. I just feel out your spirit. I feel like I'd rather be in the room with kindness than be in the room with someone who can just do everything, and it's just not nice. Yeah. So I'd rather have a sweet room than and then of course it's going to be great because the room is great,
Right. When you're talking about having spoken word and dialogue such an important part of this evening, it's kind of making me think that some people who might go to see the ballet might sometimes feel a little intimidated, like, well, I don't know really what's going on, or do I have to understand something? Do I have to feel something? How do you feel that maybe this might be a little more accessible to an audience member who's newer with dance or theater, maybe at all?
I always worry. This is also a Hope soundbite, We want to be liked. We just don't want to be liked. We want to be cast. We just don't want it. We don't want to want it. I want people to see something in this and know that they may not like it. I know that they may not like it. I even said it once. I did something at 92nd at Works in Process. And I said, I know people will say I had to choose whether to watch or listen. I said, I know people will say that, and I can't help that. I want you to do both things. And someone came up to me and said, you're right. I had to choose whether I watched or listened. And I said, well, I hope you liked one or the other. Like I had to just let it go, because if you're making something that's true to you and what you want to say, and there are lots of ballets that I can't wait to make that have no text in it at all. But at this moment right now, I want there to be something in it that tells you the story of my fear, my doubts, my feeling of lack, and understanding that I want to be better for myself. I want to look in the mirror and be better for me. And the only way for me to really tell you how I really feel is to allow the words to tell you how I really feel. I'm leaving very little for you to interpret.
Right.
And that's really tough. You know what I mean? Like, I find it's much easier for me to watch theater now than it is for me to watch dance, because there's so much about that I don't know. So I want to keep learning about it. But when I watch dance, I start to question, oh, maybe I should move like that. Or maybe I should have given them something like that. And so I pull away so that I can still be honest to this story and idea that I want to share.
Yeah.
I love it. You're making me think of there was a piece this summer in Vail that the audience clearly had like a little bit of trouble with, and Damien came out and he said, Leonard Bernstein used to say, not everything is meant to just make you happy. I'm really paraphrasing, but he said something like, some works are just meant to challenge you. You don't have to like everything, basically. It's like, because it's art. It's not just easily digestible, whatever, like junk food television or something that is you're just there to just sit and be like, oh, this is easy, like dopamine. It is sometimes you are enriched and made better by things that challenge you, or like you go revisit that piece because you're like, I don't know, it bothered me, but I can't stop thinking about it. Now I have to go back in and see what it was, and like you can learn new things about yourself as a viewer.
And I think that that is so important, because how many times do we watch something, even on Netflix, more than once and see what we missed before? You know, just small nuances or word choice or how someone looked before they said something. Like those things can unpack, and maybe you won't get it the first time. And that's also okay. That doesn't mean I have to dummy something down. And I don't mean that that's what a dance audience needs, you know, but I shouldn't have to turn it. I shouldn't have to turn my volume down low just so that I can hope you like it. I have to just be honest and then hope you like it, and be okay if you don't. And that's a challenge for me, being okay if it's not received well, you know, because as creators, we want success in something. You've been doing conversations on dance for a long time. It's a staple word now. But at first, I'm sure you questioned whether this was the right thing, or
we still do.
You know, you know what I mean? But it's our right and our duty to keep going, because what you do makes room for other people to do it.
Yeah. I wonder, as I'm hearing you talk about this, because it seems like maybe this isn't true, but it seems like you're very confident in the choices that you're making and what you want to put out there. And I wonder if that's something that's come with time, or is it totally fake and you don't really feel very confident? I'm just curious, because now that you've been choreographing for a little while.
You know, I love that you asked me that. The character, the determined, I was going back and forth whether I was going to call her the performer or the determined. And then I realized the performer can be determined. Once again, I'm looking, you know, here sitting at 92nd Street Y. I took my first memoir writing class, which is why I also had the resources to write a script, because I had written it in memoir form. And thinking about this character, I wrote the difference between, in one of our assignments, I wrote the difference between a performer, an entertainer, and an artist. And I said, oh, okay, so all of these people have drive. All of these people have a want. All of these people can see their end, and all of these people are determined to get it. But the actual performer smiles even when they don't feel like it. And so I said, well, let me portray this determined person. And she became the determined. And the determined's line is the hope I want people to see and believe. She is tired, but I'm going to smile. She is, you know, not well in her body physically, you know, but I don't want you to worry about that. She struggles with wanting to be accepted and loneliness, but I have to make sure you feel loved. You see what I mean? So there's this like push of truth that is faking it or showing the world what you want them to understand, know, and believe about you. I really want that. That part is not a lie. Whether I am that every day is the question.
Well, it sounds like such a beautiful, you know, mix of all these like personal complexities that I think are just so relatable, and I'm sure audiences are going to love it. If you're in the New York area, the shows are October 17th through October 22nd, and you can buy tickets on, I think it's Joyce.org. That's the Joyce's website, right? Okay.
Yes.
Everybody come on in. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Hope. And we're not going to wait another 4 years to talk to you again.
No, please. Even if it's over coffee.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hope.
Conversations on Dance is part of the ACAST Creator Network. For more information, visit conversationsondancepod.com.